Hi, this is Dick Meehan, and in this short video, I'm going to demonstrate some techniques I've been working on to analyze the pattern of fractures and microseismicity that develop in various types of geographic terrain. I'm going to draw on two emerging technologies, one of them being the catalogs of micro-earthquakes that have been developed in recent years and are available online. And I'm also going to use some new methods of scientific visualization for the desktop environment that have been developed as the spreadsheet once was for business purposes, but which are well suited for scientific and engineering work. We're going to look here at three moderate, that is, magnitude 5+ earthquakes. Two of them are in California, and one of them is in Oklahoma. Two out of the three are so-called induced earthquakes, that is, caused, we think, by human activity at the surface of the ground. One of them appears to be a natural event, although we can always raise questions about that. I'm going to start here with the 1975 Oroville shock that many people say was caused by the building of the Oroville Dam and Reservoir.
This event occurred on the 1st of August, 1975. There were a few foreshocks, and that was followed by a magnitude 5 earthquake that, over the next few hours, created an expanding ring of aftershocks progressing both upward and downward from the original shock, which was at about 5 kilometers depth. And here we see, after a few hours, that the aftershocks have made it very close to the ground surface. That's the deep red color. And also some of them have progressed downward. Those are blue colors to a depth of about 10 or so kilometers, leaving in the middle a pattern featuring what I call a necklace structure or a donut structure. In other words, the microseismicity formed an expanding ring, leaving in the center an area of very low seismicity that is probably the stuck patch that is the home of the magnitude 5 event. So let's just let this earthquake run its course frame by frame in what I call Omori time. That is measured in minutes. The first frame is just a few minutes, then it's lots of minutes, and we end up at the very end of the sequence with something over 10 million minutes. That is several months worth of data, terminating, by the way, only a few days before this video was made. Now, I think the color helps a bit, red, shallow, progressing to blue at about 10 kilometers depth. The color helps to give you some sense of the three-dimensional character of the distribution of these small earthquakes. But sometimes it's better to be able to look at the pattern in three-dimensional, and I can switch over to that here. And I find that really helps quite a bit to identify both at a distance and by focusing in some of the ascendingly smaller or descendingly smaller event patterns. If we take a look at the cross-section of this Oroville earthquake, I do believe that I see a ring-like structure, and I've drawn a dashed circle, suggesting that possibly that is the true location of the stuck patch that produced that magnitude 5 earthquake. I find moving back and forth between this kind of display and the 3D display, which I can manipulate in various directions, to be helpful in identifying these patterns. Namely the top one being the magnitude of earthquake, larger magnitudes at the top and smaller magnitudes below, under that. And then the most interesting one, I think, is at the bottom, where we are seeing the expansion of the earthquake with the latitude shown on the left. And you can see that over time, the earthquake, the micro-earthquakes expand both to the north and the south with minimal activity in the middle, which is where the original earthquake occurred. Well, fractals, like other artifacts of the hippie days and the Bee Gees themselves, who have been popping into this story from time to time, are now out of fashion.
but the Russians still love them.
Well, what's the potential benefit of applying these methods that we can learn from this case history? Well, when I set out to look at the Oroville earthquake, I knew no more than there had been one, arguably attributable to the reservoir sometime in the 1970s. I knew nothing of the geography, the geology, or the seismicity of the area, but relied entirely on the analysis of the earthquake data, which, by the way, is based on older catalogs that precede the newer high-precision data. What I found, to my surprise, is that there were many fairly significant earthquakes that occurred very close to the ground surface, and it seemed likely that this would have caused surface rupture. After completing my study, I did consult the literature and, in fact, learned that shortly after the earthquake, within a few days, the landscape was crowded with geologists chasing down ground crack, of which there were many located quite close to the area where my analysis indicated ground rupture should have occurred. So one benefit we have here is that this technique can identify within hours of the data going public potential locations for surface faulting at medium to large size earthquakes.
Begging your indulgence for one more small point. Earlier in one of the videos, we saw that there was a cluster of very recent and shallow events in west of the dam and north of the main area of earthquake events. These are most peculiar earthquakes since they only appear to occur on weekdays.
So with that, we'll leave the Bee Gees in the mid-1970s and move on to our next site, which is at the Calaveras Fault in the South San Francisco Bay. This fault has been extensively studied by many researchers and is a good place to test out these techniques.